Have you ever considered relocating to Costa Rica? Today I'm sitting down with Sarah Elena, a Costa Rica relocation expert. We haven't had too many Costa Rica focused episodes, so this one is overdue and we're super ecstatic. Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast, your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Our guest today is La Sarah Elena, lasarahelena.com. Again, she's a Costa Rica relocation expert, so we're going to be talking all things Costa Rica, how to start a new life there, how to turn your dream of moving to Costa Rica into a reality. Sarah, how's it going?
So good. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I've been excited learning about what you guys do and all the areas that you cover. So, whatever knowledge I can help with Costa Rica for your listeners, I'm here and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're kind of like competitors-ish, friend competitors, you could say, because we do help people move to Costa Rica among every other country in Latin America. Costa Rica residency visas. We actually do Costa Rica bank accounts that people can open remotely without ever
Oh,
even stepping foot in Costa Rica. So maybe I'll put a link in the description for that. This is sorry to start the episode with a pitch there, but obviously, you have services too where you help people move to Costa Rica, and yeah, so that's kind of what we'll talk about today. What I want to do, Sarah, is I'll just read out your kind of like bio story because I think it's great. The kind of the about me from your website, and then you could kind of add some additional color on your story and how you made things happen because people love these inspirational stories. So I'll read it out. It says, I had a nagging feeling that there was more to life than my 9 to 5. So I quit my job as a social worker, moved to Costa Rica, got pregnant, began working remotely, became a single mom, started two businesses, and it's a very long story, actually. Dot, dot, dot. I'm passionate about empowering my clients to determine how they want to live, feel, and live each day. Your move is not only going to be from point A to point B, your move is about truly deciding how you want to live your life here in Costa Rica. It doesn't matter if you're just getting out of college, starting a family, or nearing retirement. It is always a good time to evaluate how you want to live out the rest of your life and know that you truly do have the choice to design it your way. I like it.
yeah.
You know, one piece of that I haven't heard from many people, but I say this as well, is that there's something for everyone in Latin America, whether you're, young and single, or you have a family, or you're retirement age. There's something for everyone for all those different groups of people. I guess you've noticed that as well.
I have. I mean, I'll even tell people there's a climate for everyone in Costa Rica too, and there's a different types of size of communities. Whether you want lively, more laid back, rural, hot, cold. I mean, I think
Hmm.
there's a lifestyle for everyone within Latin America and definitely within Costa Rica. I've seen.
And what's your go-to? Are you more beach or mountain?
I'm a beach person. I look like a mountain person now, but we've been on the outskirts of this tropical storm, so it's the first time I've actually been wearing a sweatshirt for 3 days. And I had some clients ask me, "Oh, well, how cold it is there?" I said, "Well, it got down to 79." So for me, that's sweatshirt weather. But yeah, I'm a beach person, but I've done the mountains plenty of times.
I'm sure. And do you tell people what town you're in, or at least what province?
For sure. So I'm in the province of Punta Arenas, and I'm in a town called Playa Hermosa. There's actually, many Playa Hermosas in Costa Rica, but I'm the one near Jaco. So I'm in the Central Pacific.
Jaco.
Jaco is one of the most developed beach towns in Costa Rica. So it's a good spot. And I've moved around a lot before that. I lived in about over 20 houses before I built my own here.
Hmm. So I'm looking at Punta Arenas province. I didn't because I'm not like the expert on Costa Rica provinces. It's like an enormous province. It covers like more than half the Pacific coast. It's kind of crazy if people look at this on Google Maps. I didn't know this.
It's a very weird shape.
It is a weird shape, and it covers part of the peninsula too.
Yep, it does. It goes all the way down to the peninsula as well. So you have the Nicoya Peninsula, and then you get all the way down to the Osa, down to Panama. So
Hmm. So you're near Jaco. How did you decide on Costa Rica? Was it just like the branding of like Costa Rica, Pura Vida, or was what's the kind of the story for how that happened?
All right, well, it's going to sound pretty silly. So I did move here without doing, I tell people how I moved here without doing any research. I made a lot of mistakes. That's why I do what I do to help prevent others so they don't go through what I went through.
Hmm.
So I knew I wanted to move outside the United States. So I was a social worker. I did the whole thing you were supposed to do with life. I graduated college. I had my first more of a big girl job, but I'd been working since I was 13. And I was just kind of like, is this it? Like, yeah, okay. And I didn't like that I saw the next years of my life look so predictable. And I was kind of looked at it and I was like, how boring. So I've always been fascinated by travel. I knew I wanted to go live, at least try living in a foreign country. I thought about
Hmm.
Australia. So I had other ones kind of at my mind. And I had one of my best friends at the time, his sister and her husband were living down here. And I was visiting with him and they were just, oh, it's so magical. It's beautiful. It's amazing. They're just talking up Costa Rica. And months later, I was like, sounds good to me. I just Googled a photo. I saw a white sand beach. I'm a pretty adaptable person. So I thought, why the heck not? So I packed up two suitcases. I came to stay with them. I was with them for about 2 weeks and then I kind of went off and just did my own thing. And we're over 9 years later and I'm still here. So,
Wow.
yeah,
And how old were you when you first set off?
I was 23. So I'm 32 now, which is really crazy. I feel like I kind of grew into my adulthood, through these
Hmm.
years of actually being here.
And it seems like you've gotten pretty integrated. I heard you speaking Spanish kind of offline as we were about to start clicking the record button. So sounds like you've got the Spanish pretty much 100% down.
Yes, I'm fully fluent in Spanish. Of course, I'm sure I have grammatical errors and I'll always have an accent. Can't get rid of the accent, but yes, fully fluent in Spanish for sure.
And I guess you've gone through a couple different sort of life stages, right? As we sort of alluded to with your about me intro, but right, you've gone to you came down, as a young person, and you started a family, and so could you kind of like walk us through how the evolution's been?
Sure. Well, I came down at the start of kind of restarting life, figuring out, okay, I want to carve my own path. I don't want everything to be so predictable. So what's that, really going to look like? And of course, when you take yourself out of that predictability, it's super freaking scary. And even the people that I work with, even people that are retiring that are moved here, you're still, when you're moving to another country, you're taking yourself kind of out of that predictability and it is super scary. So most of the years felt like I was on a roller coaster, like, ah, ups and downs and ups and downs. So moving here, it was very confusing for years. You're trying to figure out your place. It doesn't quite feel like home yet. Career wise, I just had made a career and then switched out of it. And I was kind of, okay, well, now what am I going to do? I started working online and then throw on getting a surprise pregnancy on top of that, becoming a single parent, so then trying to navigate through single motherhood, living in a foreign country, kind of trying to find out the career path that feels right to me, that's not, soul sucking and draining. And finally, I think I did it. It took years, but I think with persistence, I started the YouTube channel for fun, never thinking anyone would ever watch it, which is kind of funny because I don't really care too much about social media. And I started a
Hmm.
YouTube channel, never thought anyone would watch it. It's just kind of a creative outlet for myself. And
Hmm.
that's, it really turned into this business of people just, then it kind of blew up. People were asking me all about how to move here. And I got really passionate about helping people again, like design a life that makes them feel good. And that's what I've been trying to do this whole time. It's like giving people that confidence that they can step out of the box. And
Hmm.
we're just going to keep going. I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 to 10 years from now. And I love that. I mean, I know it'll be great, but who knows like how things will transform between now and then. And that's what I like about it.
Hmm. And for the audience reference, so the YouTube channel, Sarah Elena Designs Life, Sarah Elena Costa Rica has 15,000 subscribers and over 300 videos. So definitely lots of really good momentum there. I have a question for you. So, you probably went through a dark time or two regarding the pregnancy and this thing. Did you consider moving back to the US? Did you try moving back to the US, or what's kept you in Costa Rica?
That's a really good question. So yes, there was two times where I almost went back. So first, when I moved down here, I don't know how it is for you and the people you work with, or maybe the countries you've lived in, but I feel like Costa Rica just it just slaps you around. You move down, you get slapped around a lot,
Hmm.
and then I've noticed people are either like, "I'm going home," or people are like, "Okay, I made it. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna keep pushing through." So when I first moved down, I definitely feel like you get slapped around a bit. Plus, so okay, I moved in September of 2015. By December, I went back to visit family, and at that point, I wasn't sure if I was going to return back to Costa Rica. So I did almost give up a few months in, but I said, okay, no, I'm going to go give it another try. I'm going to get back down there and keep pushing on with what I was doing. And then, 9 months later or so, I find out, yeah, I was pregnant. So then I'm going, oh gosh, I should go back to the US. I should go be a normal person. I should go be a normal person again and have that normal career and that stability. And how am I going to
Hmm.
raise a kid in a foreign country? I was working online at the time, kind of freelance, picking up my own clients, doing my own thing.
Hmm.
But I had this feeling that if I'd moved back, that I'd never get back out. I just felt like if I'd moved
Mm.
back, then had a kid, I would just get so like sucked into that lifestyle again that I'd
Right.
never be able to peel myself back out. So I said, nope, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stay in Costa Rica. And it was honestly the best thing I ever did. I'm so glad I stayed. Other than that, I've never thought about moving back.
Wow. And for reference, where in the States are you from?
Virginia. So yeah, I grew up in Virginia.
Nice. And what do you kind of see more in terms of um, do you find in Costa Rica people are sticking it out over the long term, or like what kind of percentage of people decide maybe this isn't for me and go back home?
That's a really good question. We were talking about this at a retreat that we had last week. I do think that the percentage of the people that we work with do, like a higher percentage of them do end up staying because we're very tedious to make sure they really understand what they're getting themselves into
Hmm.
before coming. So whenever obstacles or things kind of come up, they kind of know to expect it. They know that that's something that they're ready to overcome. But I think, I don't know what the percentage of others. I mean, what is it? Maybe 50% stay, 50% go. Some
Mm.
people just come with the intention of trying it out for a year anyways. So it's definitely not everyone's. I don't remember what they're saying online, but I don't know where people really get those statistics from. It could be 50-50.
Regarding the Costa Rica slapping you around thing, we have a term for this. We call it the Latin hammer, right? And
So it's a thing.
it could be like a dog barking at 3 a.m. It could be, the plumber doesn't show up for a week, or the road is rained out from a landslide, or like so anything like that, like a random LATAM inconvenience, we call it the Latin hammer.
I love that. Now I have a term I can use to explain this to people better because I try to give them a heads up. Like you're going to be tested when you come down, and it's really just I think it's good. It'll filter you out if you're not meant to be in Latin America or in Costa Rica. You'll know.
Do you have any good? I'm sure you have a dozen good stories about sort of Latin hammer type experiences in Costa Rica.
Oh goodness. Well, gosh, I guess I could go back to when I first moved here. And again, a lot of this could have been prevented if I just done more research. I moved to Costa Rica. I was with, those people. I didn't realize they lived 30 minutes walking up a giant hill. And at the bottom of the hill, there was nothing there either. There was a little, pulperia, a little mini corner store. So that was challenging. Didn't have a car. I realized, you need to be able to position yourself into where you're going to be. The climate, the mosquitoes, just adjusting to the heat. You're right, dogs barking, loud parties going on all night long. I hear sometimes that can happen, or I hear complaints at night. I'm a light sleeper. Uh, just adjusting to the rainy season. I don't know if you guys can see the rain. We've had rain for a straight week, which normally is unusual. Fine by me, but yeah, people showing up late, not showing up on time, maybe work not being done correctly. The list could go on, but there are things that if you're going to live here, you have to not let it bother you, or do what you can to prevent certain things from happening, and then the other things that happen, you just got to let it go and just roll on with life.
Hmm. So, what would you say are some of the pros of Costa Rica? I guess, or even yeah, pros and cons. But maybe we'll start with the pros. What makes it better than life in the U.S.?
For sure. Well, okay, number one, I would say the sense of community. So the sense of community that I felt here and that, people that I work with that, they come down for, a lot of them will come down and they go, wow, are Costa Ricans really this friendly? Like, is this just a fluke? Like we came down on a trip. Everyone was so kind, so helpful. Not that, there's always your bad eggs and where you go in the world, but in general, I would say Costa Ricans a very friendly, open, welcoming culture of people, and they have a very tight knit sense of community. Anything outside of the city of San Jose, it's going to be a small town in comparison to many other areas of the world. So everybody kind of knows everybody. People do band together. Um, so I would say it's the sense of community I love. Like I love feeling like I'm actually in a community where I know the people around me. And I've always been
Hmm.
able, and I've lived in a lot of different areas, and that's always happened. It's very easy to make that sense of community. The weather. I mean, a lot of people like that you can be outdoors all year round. I love being outdoors. I hate being cold. So that's a huge
Hmm.
pro. I don't like it's at 79 degrees and I already got a sweatshirt on. I don't like the cold. But if you want to be chilly here, you can. You can get into the 60s, 70s. The food. So I have a lot of people tell me I've had a lot of people move down that have had health conditions and were on certain medications, but after moving, after amount of time, they lost weight. They're just eating a healthier diet.
Hmm.
Um, the food, I would say the food overall is way better quality. I hear a lot of complaints about people not knowing what's in their food in North America. So
Hmm.
I like the fresh food as well. And just a healthier lifestyle. You're walking more, you're outdoors more, you have that sense of community, you get more sun. So for me, it's definitely been, yeah, the food, the community, the nature, and just the overall like friendliness and happiness of the people here. Like seeing happy people every day makes you pretty happy.
Hmm. Could you go into a bit more detail about the community and the sense of community that someone might expect in Costa Rica?
Yeah, well, I feel like people really band together to help each other. So we have good volunteer organizations. Let's say, during COVID, people were not mean to each other. Everyone was still great. Everyone was helping. If there's someone that needs help, if there's an animal that needs help, a family that needs help, someone will raise awareness about it, and the community will definitely pitch in to help out. I don't know how it is where you guys are, but all of our neighborhoods and communities, we have these WhatsApp groups where everyone,
Hmm.
like my whole everywhere where I live, everyone's in a big WhatsApp group. Someone had a tree fall in their house the other day. They needed a place to stay for the night. So things like this. So it's kind of nice that I do feel like there is a good reliance on community here. Whereas maybe other places, some people don't feel that. And people here, they don't really care what your political beliefs are. They don't care what you're wearing. They don't care what you drive. As long as you're kind, as long as you treat people with respect, everyone's pretty cool. And that's nice. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses, let's say, which I like.
Hmm. Yeah, for reference, I'm in Mexico these days, and I kind of live in a more jungly coffee region area of Mexico. So I kind of, when people say like, "Where in Mexico do you live?" I'm like, "Oh, it's kind of like a Costa Rica vibe, but in Mexico."
Oh, cool. So you probably walk down the street and people wave and they know you. And I think
Hmm.
maybe Costa Rica is like what it was, 40 years ago back in the U.S. People wave for no reason. You're going down the street, you know, everything's just more relaxed. It's nice.
Hmm. And I know, being on the beach in Costa Rica is a little bit different, but is there like a local town square with like a church and they got little like food vendors out front?
In other towns, yes, not my town. They don't. Costa Rica does a lot of their typical traditional towns will have the church, and then you have the park. The park and the church.
Hmm.
The ones around here don't really have that exact setup, but a lot of other towns do, which is it's pretty cool. Yeah, you have that communal area, people where people gather on a Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking at Playa Hermosa on Google Maps. So it looks like it's kind of a black sand beach.
Yes, yeah, Black Sand Beach, and big for surfing. So like world renowned surfing spot.
Nice. Do you surf?
When I lived in Hackville, about 10 minutes away, I did, but it's hard to find the time for it these days. It's been very, very, very busy.
And do you have like a big truck, or I imagine everyone says like Costa Rica is way better when you have a car. You got like a Toyota Helix or something.
I sure do. You pegged me. Yep, I got the Toyota Hilux. I love
Do
it.
you?
It's amazing. Yep,
You got the
a white one.
Hilux?
I sure do.
Damn.
It's a good one.
Okay. Shit, I'm jealous.
I was saying, driving around in these rains, I'm like, all right, don't have to worry about it. That thing will go anywhere.
Nice. Yeah, seriously. Did you get any like aftermarket stuff like the roof rack or something?
Oh, it's got the snorkel. It already came with the snorkel. I did.
Snorkel.
It's a 2016. Honestly, if anyone's ever thinking about buying a car in Latin America, Toyota, just do Toyota. Do yourself a favor. Like it's like brand new. It drives like it's brand new still. Mechanically, everything's perfect. It's not like in the United States where every 10 years you're going to upgrade your vehicle. So I did some cosmetic upgrades and I fixed the paint. It looks like a brand new car now and it runs like new still. I mean, shout out to
And
Toyota.
you bought it used?
Yep, I did. Yep,
I'm jealous.
it's a good
Came with
vehicle.
the snorkel.
It did. I don't know if I've ever technically had to totally use it. Maybe once, but that was about it.
I follow this Instagram page called like Off-Road Passion, and it's all videos from like Costa Rica, Honduras, Panama, of people like doing river crossings in
Oh God,
Hiluxes and in other like off-road vehicles, and it's gnarly. Like they're going way into the river where the water basically goes up to the windshield,
oh
and
God,
like some people cross successfully, some people don't, and their car like goes down the river.
no, that'd give me so much anxiety. No,
You haven't had to do that.
no, 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 no. We went to the beach one of these days a few weeks ago, and I did reach a puddle that was much deeper than what I thought, to where the water actually did come over the windshield. Oh, no, not over the windshield. Sorry, it came over like the top, like the hood, and I was like,
Hmm.
whoa. But that was it.
And what's kind of the mix of people in a place like this? I guess in Hako or kind of, I know you're just a little bit out of town. Like, what's the mix between locals and foreigners? And are the foreigners majority retirees or families or like young hippies or surfers? Or what's kind of the like kind of makeup?
Okay, I would say here it's a big melting pot of like everyone. You have your retirees, your retired singles, your retired couples, you have your families, you have your even single parents, you have your young 20 something yoga and surfer people. I mean, it's here is definitely a big melting pot of everybody. I like this area because there's a lot of Costa Ricans who live in Jaco. So some areas of Costa Ricans have gotten pushed out of those areas because it's become expensive. In this
Hmm.
area, you still see a ton of Costa Ricans that live in this area. So it's very, I would say it's very integrated. It's a very, also it's a touristic place, but some areas they've been kind of pushed out. Whereas here, they're right there and all the towns right on the beach. But you do have your other pockets of Costa Rica that are okay. This is more the where the hippies live up in the mountain up here, and
Hmm.
okay, yeah, here's a good surfing spot. The yogis are over here. The spirit, got a little bit of everybody everywhere. But this is definitely like one giant melting pot. It seems to me.
That's awesome. And I guess regarding cost of living, so this is something that comes up as like the main con or detractor of Costa Rica is that it's like quote unquote just as expensive as the US. Could you kind of like break down what you're seeing on the ground? It's good to finally have someone on the podcast that could sort of shed some light on the cost of living in Costa Rica.
Totally. And, I see these comments on Facebook of how much do I need to live in Costa Rica? Or maybe you've seen it. How much do I need to live in Mexico? And it's just so personal to that person because if you want to, you can make Costa Rica, someone can come and make Costa Rica very, very expensive if they want to. And it also depends where you're coming from. If you're coming from New York or California, you might think, oh, wow, Costa Rica is super cheap. There are things that are more expensive here. So, like the cars, way more expensive here.
Mm.
But then you have other things that are cheaper. So, let's say I don't know, getting a massage or getting your hair cut or just kind of your day to day services. Go and get fresh fruit and vegetables from the markets is definitely a lot cheaper.
Hmm.
Even some organic products. Imported things are going to be a lot more cheaper because Costa Rica, I'm sorry, more expensive because Costa Rica has a lot of import taxes. So I think
Hmm.
it just depends how you want to come down and live your lifestyle. So for each person, I try to do it like budget them out, like at least teach people how to gather the exact expenses. Because even rentals, as you know, are you're probably paying a different rate than what you do up in the mountainous coffee farms in Mexico than you would if you were in like a tourist hotspot.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Crema Social. Crema Social is like TikTok for international dating. It's an app you can download right now on your phone, and 3 out of 4 people on Crema are single women. The app was founded in Colombia, so unsurprisingly, there are a lot of Latinas on the app, by the way. So, how does it work? Crema Social is a social meal experience where you invite a hot girl for a lunch date via video call and food delivery. New concept, so you'll have to try it out for yourself, but this is probably the best way to meet Latinas before you visit the country. So if you're in Latin America or planning to visit Latin America, download Crema Social now and start getting dates right away. There will be a link in the description to download, or just search Crema Social on your favorite app store. Have fun, guys. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Bit Refill. Bit Refill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. If you are a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Holtze, the author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond $20K a month. So what is job stacking? It's this idea of working multiple remote jobs. You might have heard Rolf, he's worked 5, 7, even 9 remote jobs at the same time before. And by the way, job stacking works equally well for non-technical roles. So no, it's not just for the nerds. So if you're ready to job stack, then book a discovery call with Job Stacking and see how they can double your income in just 9 weeks. In the show notes in the description, there will be a link where you can book a call directly on the Calendly of Job Stacking and be talking with them as early as tomorrow about how to double your income as quickly as possible. Yeah.
So just, I would say the rental takes up a lot of people's budget, getting quotes for insurance, looking at your daily habits and how you're driving and using gas on a day to day. If you have kids, how much do the private schools cost in the certain areas that you're going to be in? Electricity. So if you're going to be up in the mountains, you probably don't need AC. Great. If you do need AC, that might be $200 in electricity per month.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like a healthy budget. Let's say if you're just like a single person working online, you don't mind kind of living super minimalistic, no car. You want to kind of not rough it a little bit, but maybe live in a studio or a 1 bedroom. You'd probably be fine on 1,500 a month, but you'd have to like probably keep an eye on your budget. But maybe if you're a family, your kids are in school, you're probably going to want to be looking at 2,500 to 4,000 per month for sure, maybe even 5,000 or more. So it just
Mm-hmm.
depends again, like what lifestyle the person's trying to bring with them, where they want to live, how they eat, what are their daily habits. But Costa Rica is not cheap. It's not. And I know it has gotten more expensive. And I don't know why. Like, why are we more expensive and you guys aren't that expensive? I don't get it. There's people moving to Mexico, right? There's people moving to, I went to Guatemala, so cheap. We're going to El Salvador at the end of this month. I imagine that's going to be cheaper too. I've been to Colombia, it's super cheap. I mean, we have like, you see people are moving all over the world. I don't know why
Mm-hmm.
Costa Rica is more expensive. I really don't.
Have you been to Panama a bunch? Would you be able to compare the cost of living in those two?
Panama's cheaper too. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure maybe some things have raised. I haven't been to Panama in a while, but I think overall Panama's like I know their cars are less expensive. Same with Nicaragua. Like I really don't. If someone else can tell us, I think it's the import taxes that make Costa Rica expensive. So I guess that would be kind of a governmental thing, not as much as people moving. Of course, housing costs have raised in certain areas, or due to like tourism. People coming from other countries and Airbnbs, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the general consensus, if you had to like rank Central America in terms of cost of living, and tell me if you agree with this, would be like Costa Rica is the most expensive, El Salvador is the second most expensive, Panama is third most expensive, and then Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras are all very cheap and probably similar, of which maybe Nicaragua is the cheapest. And then Mexico, you'd probably slide somewhere in there, like definitely cheaper than Panama, but probably more expensive than Guatemala. Not sure. Um, what do you think about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds accurate. And I guess you have to wonder, okay, if it's so expensive, why are people moving here versus the other places? And at least, the people that I work with, a lot of times they'll come on vacation first, most of them. Others might just decide to move. And they just like have this feeling. So even though it's more expensive, they say no. Like I either they feel safe here, they love, like I said, that community, like the people who are around. They just a lot of people describe, oh no, I just felt something when I was there that I
Mhm.
felt like I really wanted to be there and I want to try out being there.
I think Costa Rica just has a really good brand name where like if you were, I don't know, a retiree and you're talking to your spouse and you're trying to convince the spouse like let's make it happen. Costa Rica just has the brand name that makes it sound not scary. But if you say, "Hey, let's move to Guatemala or Nicaragua," like it just doesn't have the brand name and it's like just sounds like a scary wild thing to do. Panama also is pretty good brand, but I think Costa Rica wins in terms of the brand.
True, and like not having the military, like a lot of people, oh yeah, I like that
Mhm,
there's no military. There's lots of nature. I mean, it's one of the most biodiverse areas of the planet. So I
mhm,
think it's definitely the lack of military and just maybe the peacefulness, the stable political environment. Like overall, the politics here are very stable. So I think that's what people also look to as well. That they'd rather pay more to be in a country that has those things, even though it's going to be a bit more expensive. But
mhm.
some other countries have those things too. So I think you're right. It could just be the branding that Costa Rica has made for itself.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a bit of a get what you pay for. Like Costa Rica is much more like better infrastructure, a bit more like manicured, less rough kind of thing, which I think is good for people. Okay, I have a good question for you. I noticed on your YouTube channel you just recently put out a video about reverse culture shock that you experienced in the U.S. This is something I love asking people because every time I go back to the U.S. or Canada, I get huge reverse culture shock. Could you tell me about what your most recent experience was with that?
Let's see. So ever since I moved, I usually go back minimum twice a year to the US. So I'll go back in December, like I already got my tickets for next month to go, Christmas time. And then I go back usually in July. So
Mhm.
every time I go back, it's tough. First, I would go back for a month each time, and then it's my trip started getting less, more, okay, 10 days, 14 days, kind of 12 is a good spot for me. That it's tough. Um, well, I guess number one is I have my whole life here, and this is my day to day routine now, so it's kind of hard for me to like rip myself out of that. But the people aren't as friendly. There's traffic. I can't find anything to do. Every time I want to go do something, I have to go spend money. Whereas here, I can go for a nice long walk on the beach. I feel like where I'm from too, the nature almost it's like decorative. Like it's not actual nature. It's like just put a tree there, like as decoration and grass. It's kind of suburbia where I'm from.
Mm, mhm.
So for me, what the lifestyle there just doesn't align with me and what I want. So it's always kind of shocking. Yeah, people in the traffic and they're kind of rude and grumpy and yeah, it's just not the place for me.
Anything else?
Oh, I mean, just like getting behind on times of technology, that's always fun. I'll go back. I'm like, oh, this exists now, or I remember when they put the chips in the debit card. So I'll still go
Uh-huh.
back and like, for a while, I was still handing my debit card to the people at the cashier in the United States, and they always look at me like, "What are you doing? Like, use the machine. It's right next to you." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I gotta use the machine." So sometimes I would do strange kind of behaviors that I would just be used to, down here, or greeting people in a certain way that you don't greet people up there that you do down here. So I have to kind of remember some of those things as well.
What about old high school and college friends and, either inviting them down to Costa Rica or trying to meet up with them when you're back in Virginia? Maybe it was easier in the early years and now you're like deep in the Costa Rica game and maybe it's hard to keep those connections alive.
Well, some of them I've definitely, so that's what I'm saying. Like when someone's a lifelong friend, you definitely know when you move. So moving to another country is a really good test of that. Like I still have two really good friends that I grew up with. We don't talk every day. And I have another one that I met, when I was 19 that we're really good friends. So I still feel like my best friends from the US, I still have. But you're right, you do lose touch with people. I've gone back, and some of the people from high school are sitting at the same bar doing the same old thing, they've done for the last 9 years whenever I've gone back. Or others have moved away and, moved to whole different states, or I don't know about maybe other countries too. So just kind of interesting to see how life kind of progresses whenever you're gone. That's for sure. But yeah.
And especially kind of at the age we're at, I'm in my early 30s too. People are starting to get married, they're starting to have kids. And it's like, am I getting invited to the wedding? Or like, should I go like meet the baby when I'm back or something? It's like, I haven't seen this person in like 2 years now. They have a baby. Do I like go meet the baby or like bring a little piece of clothing for the baby, a little gift, like it's a whole new thing at this age.
Totally, or even like family members. The thing is, when you move out of the country too, you do miss big events. So you'll miss babies being born. You're going to miss weddings. You're going to miss deaths, maybe, or and that's part of it too. Is you do start to miss out on some things. So sometimes I can get a little bit nostalgic. I liked where I lived in Virginia the last 5 years before I moved, which was down like more southwest in Harrisonburg, and there was lots of mountains and rivers, and I had my friends owned farms, and we it was very outdoorsy. So sometimes I will say I get a little bit nostalgic, and I think this visit I'm going to try to make it down there to see them. So it's interesting to see how people change over the years as well.
Yeah, definitely. Have you had people come visit you?
Yeah, so I have. Let's see, one friend came. I've had one friend come twice or three times, another friend come once. A lot of people say they're going to come visit you. And, when you first move, they're, oh, I'm going to come down there. I'm going to come visit you. And, I've had clients who say, like, oh, yeah, I want to get a 3 bedroom home, or I want a 2 bedroom home. And I'm like, well, why? And it's kind of out of their budget. And they're like, well, these people are going to come visit me. And I'm always like, okay, let me hold your hand while I tell you this. Probably not.
Nobody's gonna come visit.
Yeah, not everyone. People are gonna, oh yeah, I'm gonna be there. That's so awesome. Or I'm gonna move too. Let me know how it is down there. I'm gonna follow you down. So I would say don't base your like monthly living expenses based off people coming to visit you, because they can just rent an Airbnb, or you could guys go rent something together if you have too small of a space. But yeah, not as many people are going to come down, as you think it's possible. People have their own lives and they get caught up. My brother still hasn't visited. Him and his wife. I've been down here. They have 2 kids now, and life happens. They work for the school system. They've never been to Costa Rica. They've never visited me here. But my parents come down once a year.
How does that make you feel that your brother hasn't visited?
That's okay. I mean, I understand. They got like their lives and stuff, and it's all good.
And then they'll go on vacation like somewhere else random, like the Dominican, and you're like, dude, why didn't you just come visit me?
Right? I imagine, well, I may be taking the kids on an international, and maybe, family also may feel different than you do. Like they might, when I moved, of course, my parents are thinking, was it safe there? Like, is she going to be okay? Is it
Hmm.
okay to bring, my kids to this foreign country to visit? So you start to realize actually a lot of people do have maybe their own fears about even traveling to certain countries abroad as well. Like Mexico. I would like to visit Mexico, but then maybe I'm like, is it safe in Mexico? Like,
It's safe. It's safe.
yeah, like you're gonna be like, well, that's safe. I'm like, yeah, it's Costa Rica. You're fine. I mean, just use your common sense. But
Hmm.
I understand where people have. The more I've traveled, the more I understand again the mindset that other people have when they're moving here.
And continuing on the relationships theme, do you find that relationships in Costa Rica are a little bit transient, like people kind of come and go, or are people kind of there for a long time, or how do you kind of deal with that?
Totally, that's been a challenge over the years, and I do discuss that like at our programs, or I've talked about that with clients. It can be hard because you meet someone and they're awesome, and you're like, cool, this is a friend, and then a year later they're leaving. So that can definitely be a challenge. Overall, though, I've had really good friendships here. I've met really genuine people. I found way more people that I feel like I can connect with here. So
Hmm.
maybe the connections don't last as long, but I feel like I have more in common with the people that are around me, because a lot of them move for the same reasons. And just Costa Ricans, I like their culture. I align very well with their culture, so I
Uh-huh.
relate very well to them as well.
Yeah, one thing I've definitely noticed is you get the friendship accelerates faster in Latin America, where God knows how long it would take to get invited to a dinner party in the US. Like
Mhm.
that's at like the 1 year mark or something. But like you could meet someone in Costa Rica, I'm assuming, and you're going to a dinner party with them later that week, or and people just have less of a barrier, I think.
1000%. You could be going to their house that night.
Yeah.
Sure, come on over. And even it's a very Costa Ricans are very open. They'll very often invite you to their home for coffee and bread. And when I'd move to new areas, they'll openly invite you into their homes, and it's
Hmm.
nice. And same with the other expats who live here. They're very, I remember I met, oh yeah, we're having the Thanksgiving dinner. Come on over for Thanksgiving. They like just met you yesterday. You're like, okay.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then what about kind of family friendliness? Do you find that that's kind of a reverse culture shock too thing, maybe? But do you find Costa Rica to be more overall family friendly of a society than say the U.S.?
I would say 1000%. So let's say if your kid's crying or screaming or having a fit in the grocery store, you're not going to get dirty looks in this country. And I love that. I was a single parent for years here, and I never was met with those dirty looks. It's always, oh, it's so cute. And they'll even like pick them up and play with them or entertain them, let's say. Like,
Hmm.
they're just so family oriented here, and they really love kids. Even being pregnant, they love pregnant people. They're very like, oh my God, when's the baby due? They're like more excited
Yeah,
about your
yeah.
pregnancy than you are at that point. They're
Uh-huh.
very respectful of their elderly. So, elderly people, if you go to the bank, the elderly person's going to go in line first. So they do
Yep,
give preferential treatment. And I love that, and they really have good, good family values. Like Costa Ricans are very family oriented. And I feel like it's just the values that we as North Americans need to embrace again that I feel like we got kind of lost
for
up
sure.
there. So it's nice to come down and be around that.
Yeah, like you kind of mentioned that Latin America or Costa Rica is kind of like going back to the
Hmm.
1950s or something in some respects. And I think the family friendliness and the respecting our elders thing is a big part of that.
Totally.
And people might say about schools like, well, what's that going to look like? Because maybe either, there's this kind of common thought that it's like, the public schools in Costa Rica or in Latin America are like terrible, but then the private schools are like super expensive and probably don't even exist in a lot of these beach towns. And do you find that they're like, what kind of solutions do you help people to solution?
So there are, I would say, a wide variety of private schools available here. So that's going to be my typical recommendation is going to be private school. Public school, I would say it's just too difficult for kids to get into because most kids that move here with their parents don't speak Spanish. Also, it can be a little unpredictable. For example, the public school in my neighborhood, I have a neighbor, her daughter goes there, and she's like, yep, school's canceled this week. I'm like, why? She's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why it's canceled, or like if the teacher has a meeting, there's no school. If the teacher has something else to do, there's no school. I had friends down south that she was like, yeah, there hasn't been school for 3 months. And I'm like, why? Like, what's going on? She's like, the teacher quit. I'm like, so they haven't found another teacher? So typically, and again, it depends. It's just like anywhere in the world. If you're once you get out of the city area here, you're rural. So in the rural areas, there might be lesser access to resources. The schools may not have, all the resources that they really need. So I'm typically going to recommend private schools. And I always have I'm a big spreadsheets, PDF, like I have everything documented. So when we work with someone, I've like got this giant Excel sheet of like most of
Hmm.
the most common private schools in Costa Rica, their tuition rates, their contact information, where are they located,
Mm,
and I would say
nice.
private schools kind of come in all shapes and sizes. So maybe you can find something that's $350 a month. I
Hmm.
pay about $420 a month for my daughter's private school, but you could pay $1,200 a month too. So that'll depend where you are. So if someone's asking me, if
Hmm.
someone has two kids or one kid, and I ask them, I'm like, all right, well, what's your overall budget? So if we need to think about private school and that, making sure that they're also picking an area that has accessible options that are actually affordable. And even the private school that my daughter goes to, it's mostly Costa Rican kids that go there. So the Costa Rican, it's not, so there'll be some that will have a lot of Costa Rican kids. Well, they have to be probably because it's a Costa Rican certified private school. But then there's other ones that might be more alternative that aren't certified by Costa Rica, but they might have other accreditations through the United States or Canada. There might have
Hmm.
Montessori schools, some there's holistic schools, there's Waldorf, but then you have some more of your
Hmm.
traditional. But even in your traditional, I feel like the schools aren't these giant. They're still pretty small and quaint and very personalized, which is nice.
I imagine there's a lot of these sort of hippie-ish types alternative schools for like almost like a homeschooling vibe.
Yeah, there's like homeschooling cooperatives. Yeah, there's definitely.
Homeschooling cooperative. I've heard that. Yeah, it makes sense because like you could maybe send the kid to like downtown San Jose where there's like the elite private school that maybe a couple kids go to Harvard from. But I think what I've kind of noticed in Latin America is there's more options for schools, like at different sort of tiers and price ranges and stuff like that. Whereas in Boston or Toronto or some of these cities that I've lived in, it's like you're going to public school or you're going to like $30,000 a year private school, and there's really like not a lot in between at sort of like a mid-ish price point.
Totally. Here, yeah, you can definitely get different price points, which is good. So it doesn't mean it's has to be that expensive.
So I know you have, I guess, a podcast, or you have these like long form YouTube episodes. Do you put them on the podcast apps as well?
Yes, so they're on the Spotify, Apple Music. So it's called Pura Vida Perspectives. And this is, I
Hmm.
do the podcast. So there's also, I guess, a podcast section on my YouTube channel. And I do it with my friend Jairo. He approached me years ago. He's like, Sarah, let's do a podcast together. He's like, we'll go to the studio. It'll be professional. Let's do it. And I just
Hmm.
didn't have the bandwidth or the real desire to do it at the time. So then months ago, I was like, called him up. I was like, I'm ready. Let's do it. So we've been going to a studio, filming the episodes, and it's been awesome. It's just like another way for us to give our own perspectives of life here, information, and yeah, it's been really fun.
Okay, so people can check out Pura Vida Perspectives, and it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that stuff.
Yep, yep. And hey, if you come to Costa Rica, join us. You should come on and join us
Okay,
in person because we're in person. So
I'm gonna pass by the studio.
yeah, it's in San
Okay,
Jose.
I'm down. I'm down. I have a random question for you. So I imagine, especially like with the retirees and some of the families, a lot of them are on Facebook. Are you big on Facebook too? Are you like in there in the group chats, like, quote unquote adding value and then like hoping to like, upsell them on relocation stuff? Are you big on Facebook?
So that's how I started. Well, I started, in the groups, all that. Now I have my own group, and I have over 50,000 people in my own group. It's called Moving to
Wow.
Costa Rica. So now
Wow.
I got the Facebook group is another big funnel and how people come into our programs, and along with the YouTube and but yeah, Facebook, yes. I mean, if I didn't have to be on Facebook, I wouldn't. But
Yeah. That's where they are though. That's where the
yes,
customers are.
yep.
Yeah, I know that a lot of my avatar clients are on Facebook, but I would have to pay someone or something. You couldn't get me on Facebook.
It's a lot. I try to go live sometimes, but it's so good. Facebook is such a wealth of information, and it really is. These expat groups are so helpful. They can be
They
helpful
are.
and
They can
hurtful.
be.
They can
They
it
can
can
be
be both.
hurtful. They'll pile on. They'll pile on real quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So they can be very helpful, but then they can also be hurtful. So I like to help people distinguish, okay, what's a good question to ask on Facebook and what's a good question to talk to with a professional? Like when you're drawing the line that you need to talk to an attorney versus, sometimes there's questions on there that don't need to be on there. Or when is personal opinion? Again, like how much do I need to live? Like that's not a great question because there's so many other questions that come along with that question. So it can be
How,
hard.
how many people do you think you've helped? How many clients have you helped move to Costa Rica?
So on our spreadsheet, we're definitely at over 400 units of people. So we started in 2020. So like 400, a unit could be one single retiree or a family of five. So that would
Uh-huh.
count that. So I think we're at over 400. I'd have to check my sheet, my client arrivals and rentals. We've got it all
No,
documented.
that's
Let's see,
cool. And do you
post
pick them up at the
years.
airport in,
Oh,
in the Helix?
I used to when I first started. I used to do all that. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. So yeah, we're at almost 500 units now. So when I first started, I was physical. I did everything, and then I hired my first person. Now I have 3 employees. I have someone
Nice.
specialized just for searching for rentals because it's such a pain. I have someone who assists me with direct client support because we create their month to month timeline. We talk them through every logistic. I mean, it's everything A to Z, the whole process, and then we support them after they get here. We have weekly Zoom meetings. They have a lot of ways they can always be in contact with us for support even after they've moved and definitely before, and it's very structured. But I used to, but no, now we just organize their transport, make sure that someone's there with a sign with their name on it and
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
get to their place. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what's kind of the plans for the future? Are you going to be mayor of Playa Hermosa, or what's next for you?
Oh, Lordy. Well, let's see. What are we working on now? Right now, I'm working on more collaborations. So that's why I'm very excited to be here, on this podcast with you today. So collaborations, I'm integrating a new software that is going to be really much more interactive with how people can track their relocation and their tasks. And I'm going to be looking for, more partnerships to kind of add this service on because we complement, let's say real estate agents. We deal with all the stuff they don't want to. How do I get my
Hmm.
phone to work? What's my insurance policy? Like we take on all those questions that other providers don't want to deal with. So just gonna be looking at partnerships, and I think I'm just gonna stick with Costa Rica. I love Costa Rica. I don't have any
Yeah,
future plans to expand anywhere else, and just keep doing what we're doing for now.
you could run for mayor.
That sounds like a lot of responsibility. I already have enough responsibility. I'm just gonna keep
And
working on the other income stream, so I can travel a little bit more and also, enjoy the lifestyle that I came here to make.
absolutely. So it says on your website two businesses. Do you have another business as well, or now are you full time on this?
Oh, this has been full time since it like exploded in 2020. So before that, I had a horse tour company for
Oh,
a bit, and
cool.
then COVID happened, and then kind of squashed that dream. But that's okay.
Okay, but if we come down to Costa Rica, you can still recommend where we can ride horses on the beach and stuff.
For sure. Yeah. As long as I always look for like responsible tour providers. As you know, some tour providers are not responsible with those things and they don't, yeah.
Cool. I'm excited. Well, we got to get to wrapping up. Do you want to kind of share a final message with the audience where they can find you, all that good stuff? I'll put a link in the description with some of your links to the YouTube and the website and stuff. But take this time.
Sure. Well, you can find me on YouTube. If you just YouTube Sarah Elena, Costa Rica, you'll find me in there. So if you're not sure about Costa Rica, you just want to go binge some content, I have a lot there. The podcast, like I said, you can find that on the YouTube channel as well. I have a booking link to book a call to if anyone's actually curious about learning more about Costa Rica and what that process would look like, or if they want to, you can just go to my website, lasaralena.com, and explore around there. And there's plenty of links to book a call. But I would say, well, maybe just the last words is, maybe I would just go do it. Just go do it. If you're thinking about changing your life, moving somewhere, wherever that might be, I'm all into lifestyle changes. So I guess my biggest last words would just be, just do it. Maybe don't think too much into it. I mean, obviously plan ahead, but just go do it and see what happens because I never ever could imagine that my life would have turned out like this. Like, and you're right. I went through some dark times. I went through some tough times. It has not been all sunshine and rainbows, but I'm so thankful, like to be, where we are right now. And, none of this would have ever happened if I wasn't like, you know what? Why not? So if you're thinking that, just go try it out. I mean, I figured the worst thing that can happen is I'll just go back home and I'll go do what I was doing. I'll get another job as a social worker. I'll go rent, I'll get another apartment or you have to buy another house, whatever that might be. Make sure you have a safety net to go back to. But
Hmm.
otherwise, if you don't have too much to lose, just go do it and see what happens with life.
Oh, I forgot to ask. Are you a Costa Rican citizen now?
I'm a permanent resident. So, yep, permanent resident of Costa Rica. I think I have to be
When are you
here.
eligible for citizenship? I thought it was 7 years.
I probably should be eligible kind of soon then. I don't know if I
Yeah.
really want it. I guess I would have a passport and I can vote, but those are the only really other benefits to having it.
Definitely do it. Definitely do it if you can. It'll be good.
Yeah, maybe I'll
I
do
think
that.
it's even less years if you have a child in Costa Rica. Anyway, so we'll get to wrapping up. Well, thank you for coming on, Sarah. This was a fun one, and as I mentioned, we haven't had too many Costa Rica episodes. So if you have any other like Costa Rica influencers type people that you want to get on, definitely let me know.
I do. I have an amazing, amazing person I want you to meet. So I will send that to you after a call.
Amazing. Well, again, our guest today, Sarah Elena, lasaraelena.com. Links in the description. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. And for the audience, wherever you're listening to this, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please subscribe to the My Latin Life podcast. We put out 2 episodes a week with amazing guests like Sarah. Also, check out her podcast as well. What, Costa Rica Perspectives? Pura Vida
The
Perspectives.
Pura Vida Perspectives. Yep.
Amazing, guys. You know what to do. Catch you in the next one.
Thanks.